here. So Jardena is all the way from somewhere near New York. So she says New Jersey. But actually, Jardena will tell you that talking at the 2020 conference actually changed her life. Just because of what she's going to talk about today. So at the conference, speaking there, listening to other speakers, she said, this is actually what I want to do. And it's about bringing soul into leadership. So I'm really looking forward to hearing it today. And welcome back to South Africa, Jardena.
Thanks, Miles. We'll be Beyonce. It is a hot, humid day in August, and I'm standing in a corporate office park, sweating in the grown-up navy suit my grandmother got me with her discount at Macy's. Because I didn't have the pie baking grandma. I had the grandma who worked in the Empire State Building and then across the street at Macy's. So she got me a discount. I'm dressed like a grown-up. It is my first day at work. I look in the back of my beat-up Honda Civic. There's a small lamp and my stuffed bear, Pookie, left over from my trip across the Hudson River from New York to the foreign land of New Jersey. I just graduated college, and I'm going to work at the biggest, most exciting high-tech company in the world. I know you might be thinking Google, Tesla, but it's 1993, and AT&T was running super cool ads about the future of technology. You can send a fax from the beach. Wow, I can't even imagine. And you can't imagine why you would send a fax from the beach nowadays, but I was inspired and I wanted to go work there. So I leave Pookie in the car and I head into the big green corporate building where my new boss greets me at the front. He introduces me to my new mentor and they stick me into a cubicle and say, watch these onboarding videos. So I'm sitting there watching these mind-numbing onboarding videos, about to fall asleep, and my mentor comes in, and my mentor says, oh, after lunch, there's some big meeting in the conference room. So I'm so excited. It's my first meeting. Remember when meetings were fun? Said no one ever. But I'm excited because I think we're going to talk about faxing from the beach. So after lunch, I head into the big conference room, and I'm sizing up my new colleagues that I'll be working with maybe presumably forever. And this man walks up to the front, comes into the room, standing room only in this conference room. Man walks up to the front, and I recognized him from the onboarding videos. He's like the big cheese. He picks up the microphone, taps it 3 times, tap, 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 clears his throat, and he says, there's going to be a reduction in force. I have no idea what this means. So I look at my mentor, like, what is that? And he says, layoffs. My first day in my grown-up life, and they announce layoffs. But my mentor says, don't worry, they don't pay you enough to lay you off. Turns out he's right. They didn't lay me off, and also they didn't pay me enough. But that was the first time that my soul was crushed at work. But it wouldn't be the last. My soul was crushed again when I was asked to rank my team against one another. It was crushed again when I had to work on a project that I knew was bad for the business. And again, when I sat there and watched unethical decisions being made and my objections are ridiculed. And my soul was crushed every day when it was just so damn hard to get the work done. I bet you all have your souls crushed at work at least once. Maybe in your career. I see nodding. And I think we can agree that a soul-crushing environment is not good for business. It doesn't produce a thriving business. But we keep being sold the solution in the form of methodologies and frameworks. But I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is to stop the soul-crushing. Because and the answer here is to use a soulful lens, and I'll talk about what that is. Because a soulful lens is what creates businesses that thrive. So let's get started. We'll start by talking about what a soulful lens is. We'll talk about why it's practical, and then I'll talk about how to lead with soul. So when you saw my topic in the agenda in the app, did you think, oh, she's going to talk about soul? She's going to come out here looking all hippie, wearing a caftan, burning incense. Well, that's not me. That's not my style. I believe that leading for soul and using a soulful lens in business is a very practical matter. Okay, so if you're still wondering what I mean by soulful, some people ask me, what do I mean? Well, we've just established what soul crushing means. So soulful is the exact opposite of that. But to put a finer point on it, it means that you're doing work that's meaningful for you with people that you feel connected to with some kind of a purpose. And you're bringing the very essence of who you are. So notice, I will just mention, I use the word soul, and I choose that very intentionally. Instead of happy or joyful, I hear people talk about happy and joyful. I mean, we're not happy and joyful all the time. Things happen in life. But soulful means that we're honoring whatever emotions we have. So we can bring our full self to work all the time. It's not that fake happiness. We don't want that fake happiness. Okay. So what does it mean to use a soulful lens at work? Well, what that means essentially was that both individually and collectively, we look at things and think about and consider how it might affect people's souls, either supporting them or crushing them. Let's give an example. So, simple example, the dreaded status meeting. I mean, what is the status meeting? The status meeting is where everyone takes a turn to give a very detailed list of every single thing they're working on. Sitting there and listening to people recite things that you don't care about when you have other work to do, it's boring. It's frustrating. But the biggest soul crushing part of that whole process is the fact that you have to sit there and hustle for your self worth. And that never feels good. Well, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about a status meeting that was soul crushing and became soulful. I was working at a client, and on my first day there, I had the introductory meeting with the CIO. Now, I'd heard about this woman because she had this meteoric rise from programmer to CIO like really quickly. So I go into her office. She's wearing a tailored suit, kind of like the one my grandma got me, and some sensible shoes, and she looks all neat and serious and a little intimidating, to be honest. But she's no nonsense, and I like no nonsense. So I'm excited to be working with her. Well, what she says to me, the first thing she says to me is, I go to these status meetings with my staff, and everything's all rosy on the reports. It's all green. But I look at the financials, and it doesn't reflect that same story that I'm seeing. So can you help me find out where the disconnect is? Okay, good. I love this kind of a challenge. Well, I go into her status meeting, kind of like this, and it's immediately obvious what the problem is. She systematically, each person's reporting their status to her, and systematically she is grilling them, she's raking them over the coals, she's shaming them in front of their peers. It is soul crushing. It's like a witch hunt. Now I knew because I talked to her, she's trying to figure out why the financials don't match the status, but it feels bad in the room. And everyone starts tap dancing and hiding things, and no one's really transparent about what's going on. That's the problem. Well, before I got to even address this with her, she left. Enter Linda. Linda is the new leader, and Linda is different. She's not wearing a tailored suit. She's got some flowy dresses on. Her hair's kind of a mess. Her office is in disarray. But she looks you in the eye when she talks to you, and she cares. So we have the status meeting with Lynn. And Lynn says, if we're working on something you don't think we should be working on, I want to hear about it. That's new because people used to leave the meeting going, I don't even know why we're working on this. This is so stupid. Now she wants to know. And then she says, you all know more than I do. So I want you to tell me where I'm wrong. Well, that created some psychological safety. So next thing you know, the status meetings are people talking to each other, not to Lynn. And Lynn's not the smartest person in the room, and she's not grilling everybody. They're solving problems within themselves, with each other. And it becomes like this really vibrant status meeting where we all care about each other and try to help each other, and the business improves. So, ahead of myself. So what happens? So that is soulful. It feels good. It feels better to be in that status meeting than it did in the ones where people were being grilled, right? That's soulful. But practical, the financial results were booming because we were solving problems instead of hiding problems. And as a matter of fact, shortly after Lynn started, we met our yearly target in 6 months. So by the end of the year, it was doubled. She doubled the financial target. That's practical and soulful. And she was a pleasure. So that's why a soulful lens is so useful and helps your business thrive. So now we talked about what a soulful lens is. I talked a little bit about why it's practical. So let's talk a little bit about how we lead for it. Because you might be thinking to yourself, oh, okay, well, that sounds good, Jardena, but that's not how it works in my company. In my company, it's very soul crushing and there's no way around it. Yeah, probably, maybe. But that's where you come in. That's where you can bring the soulfulness to your company. So let's talk about how you do that. Okay, so the one thing that you might think is like, well, I'm not going to go into my company and talk about soulfulness because maybe that won't be welcomed. You don't have to. You don't have to say soulfulness. You can just do soulfulness. So what I would recommend here is you leverage what's already there, the language that's already there. So I think like employee engagement, which is like not the most inspiring term I ever heard, but you can use it as a proxy for soulfulness. You can sort of tack on to that. Like, let's do some things. Let's think about how this is affecting employee engagement. Or, let's reduce friction to get things done. Well, that sort of as a proxy for like, let's reduce the frustration that people are feeling, right? You don't have to say, let's make it more soulful on the first day. Eventually, hopefully, we say soulful. So connecting to that will help you with the words. Okay, a little bit about leadership here. If you feel like you are called to make a change in your world, like you sort of can't help but shake up the snow globe in your workplace, I call you a transformational leader or a transformator. And I think that's probably a lot of you in this room. I don't care if your title is transformation lead or if you have people working for you. Doesn't matter. If you feel like you want to challenge the status quo, you're a transformational leader. And that is not an easy job. So let me just say thank you if you feel like that's you. And I'll give you some tools to take with you. So transformational leadership, there's three things to think about. There's the me, there's the we, and the system. And actually, I'll just give myself a quick plug here. My book is Cultivating Transformations, and it's arranged in these three categories. I'm going to give you a little taste of each one today, but if you want lots more tools, in the book. So the me is about you. Like, how are you showing up? How are you behaving? How are you affecting the people around you? The we is about how are you connecting people together, like I talked about in that status meeting. And then the system is the whole organization, the process, the culture. We heard a lot about system the past couple of days. There is soulfulness in each of these areas. There's soulfulness in the me, in the we, and the system. All right. Oh, clicking away here. I'm clicking like crazy. Okay. So let's start with the me. Why is the me so important? Why do we start with the me? Because if you are polluting the waters by showing up, we need to take care of that first, right? Because you're working against yourself. So first thing we need to do, working on yourself is like a lifelong journey, right? But let's just at least make sure that you're not creating pollution and toxicity when you walk into a room. And it happens before you even say anything. Were you ever in a meeting where somebody walks in, doesn't say a word, and everything gets tense? Yeah. Did you ever think that person could be you? Well, I found out that it was me. I was working in a tech startup, and my official title was Chief Product Officer. But my unofficial title was Queen of GSD. Does anyone know GSD? It's getting shit done. And I was the queen of that. And I didn't really realize what impact this was having on other people until one day I overheard some people talking. They didn't see me. And they said, one says to the other, you hear that? When you hear the elevator ding, and then you hear the click, click, click of high heels on the marble floor, you turn down the music and we get serious, because it means Jardena's here. oh, me, I'm fun. I'm fun. Aren't I fun? But no, I was not fun. I wanted to be taken seriously. I was young. I was ambitious. And as a result, I crushed everybody else's fun. My ego got in my way. It got in everyone's way. And my ego wasn't really good for business. And that's polluting. That's polluting to the environment. So think about for a minute. Here's a tool for you. Think about a decision you made recently or an interaction you had, like a little decision, just like maybe what to work on or what to put in a presentation. And think about, did it come from fear, ego, or love? So fear is, well, I'm afraid if I don't do this, something bad's going to happen. I'm going to like be low risk here. I'm not going to take a chance. Ego, like my example, is I want to be taken seriously. I want to get a promotion. I want to be viewed well by my boss. But love is, right? And it sounds like kind of a woo-woo word, but it's like, am I doing it just for the best for the people around me? For love for the company, my coworkers, myself, just for the good of everybody. And having your decisions come from that place of love and sort of that unbiased place is where we want to be as the me so that we're not polluting with all of our baggage. Talked about the suitcase yesterday, right? And I'll just leave you with the me is just figuring out how you show up because how you show up matters. It's a quote from my friend Gage Bach. Because like I said, without even saying a word, just getting off the elevator, you're having an impact. You're sitting in a meeting, you don't say a word, you're having an impact. So make sure you know what that impact is. And then you can decide if you want to show up differently. Okay, so that's the me. So we know you're not polluting. This is the we. Soulful leaders bring people together. And we heard about this yesterday. I love Ubuntu, right? This is what this is about. It's about I am because you are, right? Did I get that right? I love it. It's the best. So it's not so much about how I interact with you because it's not about me. It's can I bring you all together? Like I talked about with Lynn, the leader who brought people together, and then she stepped back. She created an environment for people to connect. You know what it's like when everybody's running in different directions, right? It's not good for business. When we're all running in the same direction or maybe walking or rowing, it's better. So the practical side is more stuff gets done when we're moving in the same direction. The soulful side is, I mean, come on, doesn't it just feel better when people aren't working against you? We can kind of feel like what that soulfulness is, right? Sometimes I hear, oh, well, it's just personality conflict. It's interpersonal. Sometimes it's interpersonal, but really, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's goal alignment. Like we have different goals, and so we have a conflict. It's not about you find out it's not really about the personality after all. So I'll give you an example of where this happened and how you can bring people together. So I was working on a marketing team with a bunch of hipster marketers, but the company assigned us a lawyer to make sure that we wouldn't get in trouble, we wouldn't get in the newspapers. That's what they wanted to avoid. We wouldn't get sued. So they send Gabe. Now, Gabe stands out immediately in the team of these hipster marketer guys and gals. And Gabe is a lawyer, right? He looks like a lawyer. He's like overdressed, you know the type, right? He's got his suit. He's like a little dated. His loafers are older than everybody on the team, basically. And he comes in and you can see the team's like, oh, he's not going to let us do anything. So we're working on this marketing campaign and it's targeted towards college students for back to school. And so they're like, okay, we'll target to college students and we'll check their ID and we'll make sure that they're a college student and then we'll give them a discount. And Gabe puts up his hand like a policeman. Stop. We can't collect people's student IDs. Too many legal hurdles. We have to store that in the system. And it's like we have to get legal approval for that. It's going to take forever. We won't make it. And the team's like, oh, see, this is what we were afraid of. Well, now we got Gabe here, slowing us down, raining on our creative parade, a lawyer on the team. So I say, okay, hang on. Before this escalates and it becomes like marketing versus legal, let's talk about this. So I put up on the board, on one side, quickly capture the college market. On the other side, stay out of legal trouble. I talked to them like, what are we afraid of from both of these items, right? We're afraid, oh, if we capture the college market too much, it's going to like we're going to run into legal trouble. It's going to take technology forever to set a place for us to put the IDs in the system. Like, it's super complicated. And then staying out of legal trouble, it's just going to slow us down. So they talk about, they both have the same fears. And then I say, okay, and what's the upside? Well, I mean, we wanted the company to thrive, right? We all want to get more customers. We all want to capture the college market. So they see that they're more aligned. Their goals are more aligned than they thought. And then the moment of truth. Gabe says, well, is there any reason that we can't just give the discount and offer it to everyone and just like our ads will be targeted to college students? The marketing hipsters look at each other. Yeah, we don't need to check for college ID. We can offer the discount to anybody, and that would be good for business. Now they're seeing Gabe as a partner, and now Gabe's not seeing them as reckless, and they see that their goals are aligned, and then they're able to work together. So we created some we. So we're connecting their goals and their purpose, and that is the way we can get soulfulness in the team, even when it seems like you have conflicting goals, but not really. So in the story, I helped the team connect their goals to each other and to the larger goal, of course, of helping the company. And that's how we get the soulfulness and then the practical of we were able to actually run this campaign without even having to go to technology, right? It was much easier. Okay, so now we've gotten out of our own way by addressing the me. We've connected people together by addressing the we. Now, when we're all gone and we've been promoted, we want these changes to stay in place because it's not just about me running it. It's not a compliment when somebody says, since you left the team, things aren't the same, they're falling apart. That's not a compliment. You want to build the system so that it outlives you and the people on the team. So what we want to do is we want to be able to weave this soulfulness into the fabric of the organization, the DNA. So how do we do that? Well, in the words of W. Edward Deming, a bad system can beat a good person every time. So again, we have to kind of build this in to support people. The system is made up of people, but if the system's working against you, you can never win. So how do we change the system? Well, I'll give you a hint. It is not another framework. No more frameworks. Not no more frameworks. I shouldn't say that. We do need frameworks, but the answer is not in the framework. The answer is in bringing soul. So what we can do is we can look at, rather than even starting with the first thing of building soulfulness into the system, let's talk about getting soullessness and soul crushing out of the system. Maybe that's the first tool for today. So let me show you a tool to start weaving some soulfulness into your system, or maybe extracting some soul crushing out of your system. I'll give you a 3-step process here on how to think about bringing soul into your system. So think about the most soul-crushing process that you have, the most soul-crushing thing in your work life. Bjarte and I were talking the other night. The two that are the most common: budget planning, as you're not surprised. Performance reviews is another one. But, status meetings, it could be anything. It could be your daily stand-up that is soul-crushing. How about that? But I'm going to just use budget planning as an example because that one's so common across. But you think about yours. All right. First question, what makes it soul-crushing? So what's so soul-crushing about it? I mean, for budget planning, well, we heard a lot of things that were soul-crushing about budget planning yesterday, but maybe it's just being pitted against your peers that's soul-crushing. Or maybe it's trying to just hustle for money to do the job that you were hired for in the first place, right? Maybe those are some of the soul-crushing things. So just unpack those a little bit. Maybe it feels aimless. All right, second question. Well, what is the soulful purpose? It's not only to crush your soul. That's not why we put these processes in place. What was the soulful purpose in the first place? And I know you might be thinking, budget planning, there is no soulful purpose. There's some purpose, though. I mean, it is to optimize the investment that we're making, the energy we're allocating in the organization so that we can all thrive. Like, that is a soulful purpose of budget planning. It might not be panning out that way, but that was the original soulful purpose. So what's the soulful purpose of yours? So think about that for a minute. And then the last and final step where it all comes home. What would it take to bring soul into this process? So that's the one where we get some resistance, like, oh, it's impossible. We can't bring soul into this process. But here's where I'm going to give you a magic pair of glasses, the soulful lenses, right? So put on your soulful lenses and think about and look at this process. Like, if I had a magic wand, I had my magic glasses, what would it take? Would it take a, a change from the finance group? Would it take a professional facilitator to come in and have a 2-day meeting where we knock out some of the budget? Would it take some clearer direction from the C-suite? Like, what would it take? And once you can imagine that end state, now we can figure out how to work towards that. But what's the gap between where we are today and where we need to get with our magic soulful lenses? But it doesn't have to be such a big thing like budget planning or performance management, right? That might be too big to start. Maybe it's just your next meeting. So think about your next meeting that you have, the soulless one. And what can you do? Can you apply these 3 steps to that next meeting you walk into, just to inject a little bit of soul into that meeting? And that's how you can bring Soulful Lens into your organization and weave it into the DNA. All right. So to conclude, work does not have to be soul crushing. We often learn the hard way, like I did with Pookie when I first started my first job, but now we have some tools that we can bring with us to bring soul into the workplace. Today we talked about what a soulful lens is, why it's practical, and how to lead for soul. And I left you with a few tools: the me, the we, and the system. We talked about looking at the me and trying to lead with love instead of fear and ego, which we often do, and just ask yourself, where am I coming from? Where am I starting from? The we talked about providing shared purpose so people can connect. And then the system, we use the 3 questions to unpack soullessness in the system. What now? So we're all inspired to bring soul into our workplaces, but what now? So go ahead and put into your phone, using the 3 steps in your next meeting. Using the 3 steps maybe with a trusted colleague. Maybe you have a colleague here today where you can maybe collaborate about using those 3 steps with something soulless in your workplace. And then you can also join our free community. I'll give you the QR code in just a minute. It's free to join. It's a community of transformational leaders where we talk about unpacking some of the soullessness that's happening. So I'd like to finish by telling you a story about Frank. I was working with a digital product team, and they didn't really want soulfulness. None of my clients want soulfulness, but I gave it to them. I kind of snuck it in. They wanted the GSD. They wanted to be able to get shit done, and I'm good at that. But I kind of snuck in some of the soulfulness through some of the practices I told you today. And I'm leaving the office one day, and Frank gets in the elevator with me. Now, Frank was a software developer on the project, COBOL developer, not that long ago. And he gets in the elevator, and he's holding this giant trophy, this glass, you know these glass trophies, right? With his name etched in silver, and he gets on the elevator, and I said, "Congratulations, Frank, job well done." And Frank said, "Yeah, we had unprecedented success on this project." And then with tears in his eyes, he looks at me and he says, "But that's not why it changed my life. That's not why it's important. This project changed my life. I used to come to work and I would sit in my cubicle all day, and I didn't even know the people that sat next to me. And now I come to work and I have friends, and I look forward to coming here, and I'm excited, and I take pride in the work I'm doing. And that is worth more than any trophy." Frank always gets me choked up. And Frank found soul at work, and you can too. I'm Jardena London. Thank you so much for having me. I work with transformational leaders, the community, the book, and I have lots of online training and blogs for you, so you can check that out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.